The next talk presented by Ground 1234 is How I Hacked a Bank by Per Thorsheim.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Per Thorsheim. You know me as the founder of PasswordsCon, and I'm really happy to, talk to you again. I'm really sorry this is not happening live in Las Vegas at the BSides conference. I really hope to see a lot of you, all of you, next year in 2022 in Vegas. But for now, this is virtual. So what I'm going to talk about is this talk, How I Hacked a Bank Using a Paper Form. And, as the title says, there's a fun story in this. I couldn't really decide for the title, whether I'm talking about social engineering, if I'm talking about issues with power of attorney concepts, if I'm talking about digital identity solutions and so on, but the title is well this. Anyway, here's me in front of my car, or my previous car, but the license plate is a word in Norwegian, which only lacks a W to make it the English equivalent. You can probably guess what this. And I'm really proud of saying that some time ago on Twitter, I tweeted that I have a reputation to maintain, that I have it verbally from Cormac Hurley. He's a researcher at Microsoft Research, with a witness present that he's interested in passwords while I'm obsessed with it. And I asked Cormac if he could confirm that statement. And he responded saying, confirm, I have a healthy curiosity while Thorsheim is pathologically obsessed. And this is something that I'm actually really proud of, having that from Cormac Hurley. But again, back to the talk. So some background information, depending on whether you are in the US or Canada or UK or Japan, or Australia, or the Cayman Islands or in Norway, some background information is necessary. Because again, this talk is about specific stuff that you can find only in Norway at the moment. First of all, everyone does online banking in Norway. Almost every single adult from age 15 and upwards are using online banking, be it usually using apps on Android or iOS, but there are also those, of course, that are using just a web browser on a normal computer to log into the online bank. And in Norway, we also have a solution called Bank ID, which is used by everyone. It's a common authentication and electronic signature solution. It's an identity solution. And in full disclosure, I now work for Vipps in Norway, the company who is the developer and sells the Bank ID solution as well as some other solutions. I started working for them on March 1st, 2021. But there is a situation in Norway that not everyone is actually online. There are some people that for different reasons, they could be old, they could be disabled, or they are just, a bit too paranoid, and they are not using, or they are not willing to be online. They don't want to use online banking as an example. So for a few cases, we need, or the banks in Norway need to support them in other ways than just having a web page or an app for a phone. So for several years, we have had something called disposisjonsrett in Norwegian with Norwegian banks. I tried to find, an exact translation of this into English, and the best way to describe it is to provide power of attorney to somebody else to handle your bank account. So if, say, you're blind, you're disabled, or you're just truly paranoid and you want somebody else to handle your business in your online bank, you will provide a power of attorney to somebody else. And when you're using Bank ID, it's a two-factor authentication solution where you have a username, you have a password, and you also have an OTP that you will provide. And of course, the banks have been saying since day one with Bank ID that you should never share your OTP with anyone, and obviously you should never share your password with anyone either. Now, if you are, as me, into passwords, you do know that quite a few people will share their passwords, and there are also those that will share their OTP tokens with other people as well. It's a matter of trust. But at least for this case, in Norway, the banks say you should never share these secrets with anyone, including, boyfriend, girlfriend, wife, spouse, whoever it is. Now, looking at this, especially, do not share the secrets. That was actually a red flag to me. Like, I'm getting annoyed by this because I know that people are sharing passwords. Kids do it. Teenagers do it as a, sign of trusting each other. And I know that adults do it as well. So I wanted to look into how this stuff actually works, especially the power of attorney part. So I looked at the largest bank in Norway, DNB. It's not just the biggest bank in Norway, but by far it's a lot bigger than the second biggest bank in Norway. And usually when you use bank ID, this is completely online, and you log in using bank ID, you transfer money, you pay your mortgage, you pay your rent, you pay money to the people in the US, and you do that all online, and you never have to visit the bank physically. Actually, in most cases now, you will never visit your bank, and in the very near future, there will be no need ever to visit the bank physically again. Everything will be handled online, including the process of signing up to become a customer of a bank or to get a mortgage, as an example, with a bank. No need to visit the bank physically. But for the power of attorney concept, it's very simple. When you go online, you can register a new person that will be given access to your account to handle your business on your behalf. Doing that online is a very easy process. You have to type in the social security number, which is basically our usernames in Norway, and say that this person will be given access to my bank account. That person needs to be a member or a customer of this bank specifically at the time of sign up. The person needs to be 18 years of age or older in order to be allowed access to manage your bank accounts. And that's basically it. Click and click and click and go, and you're set. But I wanted to look into the alternatives for this because, as I said, not everyone is online and can do this online. So DNB, as one out of several banks, provide an alternate option. You can use a paper form and send it by postal mail to the bank. Because bank ID, let's just say that bank ID is, perfect, it's secure. So I was curious about, okay, and so you can fill in a paper form and send that physically to the bank. And by doing that, you can provide somebody else with access to your bank account. And that access will then be, digital. Interesting concept. Let's look into it. So DNB, the biggest bank, had this paper form. It was a one-page paper form looking like this. It's in Norwegian, so sorry about that, but I will explain a bit for you. So first of all, there's the owner of the account. That's me. I'm the victim in this case. And I will have to, or an attacker will have to fill in my name, my address, which is publicly available information, my social security number, which is sort of a secret, but it was never meant to be a secret when the algorithm was designed, and my bank account number. Now, banks in Norway are not allowed to disclose to anyone basically your affiliation with a bank, if you're a customer, your bank account number, and so on. But in a way, it's not much of a secret really. Which bank are you using? What is your bank account number, and so on? If somebody's to pay you money, they need to know your bank and your bank account number. And then there's information about the person that I'm providing power of attorney access for. And that is, in this case, going to be the attacker. And I don't know this because the attacker will be filling in this paper form by themselves. It will not be done by me. So here you have the name and address and social security number of the attacker that needs to be filled in into this paper form. This could be the attacker, or it could be also a money mule, which is, again, somebody basically being tricked into doing something illegal without actually understanding what they are doing. And then you need a physical signature from the account owner. And I don't know about the US if you're using checks with signatures and if you actually do signature checks still. But in Norway, it's, physical signature. What the hell? That's something we were doing when I was as a child, and I'm going to be 50 now. And wherever you go, if you're asked to sign on anything, you just put an X and nobody cares anywhere. So I was curious about, when we fill this out, will anyone actually do a signature verification at all? Because I do know that the bank does have my signature on file. And then we also need 2 witnesses, and these witnesses that will, testify to this form being correct, and this is something that the account owner, has done, willingly, and I do understand the consequences of doing this. So they will confirm the validity of the document in accordance with the wishes of the account owner. And witnesses cannot be the spouse, partner, parents, kids, or grandchildren of the account owner. And I was curious also about, in this case, whether these witnesses can actually be held accountable for signing off this document as witnesses. And I've asked lawyers about that, and they say that probably not, actually, in case something bad happens, that is. So, first of all, I said the Norwegian social security numbers are not really supposed to be a secret, and that's true. But the funny thing is, a lot of Norwegians still think that their social security number is a secret, and they try to keep it secret. And what's even worse is that a lot of businesses are still using the social security number as a secret when it's not supposed to be used that way. The algorithm for generating our social security numbers is not a secret at all. It's public information. It's 11 digits. It's my date of birth. So mine is 10/09/71, so September 10, 1971, and 5 more digits. And these last 5 digits, the middle one of them is a gender indicator. So odd numbers are men and even numbers are women. So you need to find my birthday, which again is September 10, 1971, and then you can use a generator to find all the possible social security numbers for a man born on September 10, 1971. And that's approximately 100 numbers, maybe a little bit more. And when you have generated those 100 numbers, you need to find a service that will allow you to verify the validity of the number, meaning, first of all, is the number actually being used by a real existing person, male person, today, which is alive? And then you need to figure out if that person is me or if it is somebody else, another man born on the same day. That process isn't really hard. So in order to validate these, we were looking around, because I did this as a project with 3 good friends of mine. So we looked around, and it's a known fact among especially, security people and hackers that there have been time and again, there have been services online which will allow you to verify the validity of a Norwegian social security number. So we are not disclosing any names or logos or countries in this, but we did find a service that allowed us to do that, unauthenticated, no rate limiting at all. And I just have a picture here of the Swedish chef without any other explanation. But we managed to verify and ensure that numbers were valid, and we could also find that the specific number used by me belonged to me using a specific service that we found on the internet. So then we have a social security number, and the last thing that the attacker needs is to figure out my bank account number. I did talk to the super financial authority of the Norwegian government, and they said, well, your bank account number is not a secret. It's not supposed to be a secret, and in many cases you have to give it to others if they are to pay money to you or transfer money to you. And for some weird reason, while doing this little research project, I actually sold a camera lens for one of my DSLR cameras to somebody else in Norway, and I was going to send the camera lens by physical mail to them, and it's cash on arrival. So they go to the post office, they have to pay for the lens at the post office before getting the package. And when they get the package and they make the payment to the Norwegian Post, the Norwegian Post will then transfer the money to my account. And I never actually thought about it before, but filling out the information that goes on the package, I also actually have to include my bank account number on the package. So not only will the remote post office get my bank account number, but the recipient of the package will also get my bank account number. And there you go. So if you send anything by postal mail that people are supposed to pay for when they receive it, they will also get your bank account number. So it's sort of easy, actually. But in our case, we went with a bit of social engineering. We wanted to see if we could convince a customer representative at DNB to provide my social security number to an attacker. Now, a good friend of mine who's a specialist in social engineering, he does a lot of pen testing in that area here in Norway, he took on the challenge and he called the customer service of DNB. Now, you can probably guess the outcome of this, but some of the interesting things that Norwegian banks are doing, they do security questions. And security questions is a topic that we have been talking about at PasswordsCon previously as well. And in my simple mind, there are two types of security questions. You have static security questions where the answer is kind of fixed, it doesn't change in the future, like mother's maiden name, name of first pet, name of first school, and so on. And a lot of times you can probably Google your way to the answers to these questions about most people, especially if you have Facebook, of course. But then you also have dynamic security questions, which can be maybe a little bit more tricky to bypass. It can be something like, name someone you made a payment to during the last few days, as an example. Or they could be asking, how much money approximately do you have in account number 1, 2, or 3 that you have in our bank right now? That can probably change. For some people, it's just 0 constantly. I don't know. But again, it's a question about how good entropy do these security questions have when they are supposed to be dynamic. Like, well, I always have 0 in my account, so it's rather, it's not that high entropy. Anyway, we completed the paper form and sent it by paper mail to the bank on a Tuesday afternoon, and then we just waited to see what happened. Boom, that happened. We actually hit jackpot on this. And we discovered that, well, first of all, for the paper form, there were insufficient controls. Not only did we fill out the paper form, but we used several colored ink pens to fill out the paper form. We had several different people write in the information. So you have, should I say, different fonts or writing styles on the document. The 2 witnesses were just 2 random people at a cafe, 18 and 19 years old. And I can promise you they did not understand what they signed up for as witnesses. And only one of them asked to see some ID and really didn't look at our ID at all, I would say. Even more concerning is the fact that me, as the account owner, and also the person that I provided power of attorney privileges for, which is a good friend of mine, but in the scenario, this is an attacker, none of us were notified by the bank that power of attorney access have now been granted and the person can now log on and use your bank account for almost anything they want. That was mind-blowing shocker to me and to everybody else as well. I mean, it's somebody gets access to your account and nobody notifies you or the person that actually gets access to your account. That's insane. And not only that, but the person got full access, meaning that you can do everything except you can't get a mortgage or, put me into more debt by having this access as an attacker. And you cannot pay my bills for me, even if I'm receiving my bills electronically. And in Norway, most bills are received electronically inside your bank, but the person with power of attorney privileges can't see them and can't make the payment. But the person can see my entire payment history 10 years back in time, which is sort of crazy in some cases. We also found that this power of attorney access, there are legal agreements on this, but they are different from bank to bank. It's not standardized between the banks. The way you order power of attorney access, the overview, the way you can look at, the setup of this, and the changes you make to it, because you can give a power of attorney access to several people, if you like, or 100 people maybe. We don't know how many you can actually give it to. The use of it, the logging, alerting, and removal of access are all different. And in almost all cases where we checked, it was very hard to figure out what's going on, who's got access, what have they done, what have they seen. And there are no controls for me as an account owner to set up, any limitations on what they can do or cannot do, which was crazy. And just as one example, we found that one of the legal agreements for this power of attorney access had hard-coded December 31, year 9999 as the expiry date, and you couldn't change that at all in the contract with the bank. So once you sign it, they will have access into eternity, or pretty much, or until you again say that, well, I'm cutting the agreement, I don't want to do this anymore. And also, again, another shocker, when I logged on using either the web version or the iOS app version of the online bank app, there was, in the main screen of the online banking screen, there's no information there that somebody now have access to your bank account. Nothing. You can't see it. You have to go into several submenus before you can find the fact that somebody else have access to your bank account, which again is a shocker, really. So, of course, this needs to be fixed. And I did talk, of course, to the bank. I'll get back to that. But one of the things that we found is that while using time to do rate limiting and using time to our advantage is very important in this case, and to the disadvantage for criminals. So if you got an iPhone, maybe you have entered the wrong PIN code a couple of times, and you've seen messages like this, iPhone is disabled, try again in 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 1 hour or 1,000 years, I don't know. That system is not really that much applied to these systems as of, even today. We also saw that there was an absolute, complete lack of granularity of access. Either you give full access, apart from, the attacker or the power of attorney person will not be able to give you more depth, but they can do anything else. So it's either you give full access or there's no access at all. And we said, well, seriously, there should be a more granular level here, like you can pay my bills up to a certain amount, or you can only transfer money within Norway. You can't send them off to the Cayman Islands or to Aruba or to the Himalayas or anything like that. But no, there's nothing like that. It's full access or no access at all. I do know that the banks are now working on trying to look into what they can do about this. But one of the things that I told the bank is that, well, the Norwegian government in Norway has a portal where I can log in and see information about my, one-person company that I operate here in Norway. And they have many levels of granularity where you have a lot of different roles that you can assign to different people within your own company or organization, or to other people, to your auditor, to your accountant, and so on. And I said to the banks that, well, shouldn't you be able to do something similar as well, to provide granular access for different people whenever you want to grant power of attorney privileges to somebody else to handle your situation for you? And of course, I did this in a responsible, or as I prefer to say, coordinated disclosure way with the Norwegian bank DNB. We did this work last year in 2020 for a couple of months. The majority of work was being done in the month of August, and we talked to the bank in September in 2020 and continue to do so for several months, allowing them to look into and comment on, verify, and eventually also fix the vulnerabilities that we found. And on March 1st this year, 2021, I talked to the Norwegian Broadcasting Corporation, NRK, here in Norway, and they did a story on this, which was put online on March 1st. And that was actually the same day as I started working for the company Vipps, who is the owner and developer of the bank ID. And DNB, the biggest bank in Norway, is also one of the biggest owners of the company Vipps. So I did talk to the bank, I did talk to my new employer, and they were fine with this information going public with the Broadcasting Corporation in Norway. And it said that, I could hijack a bank account just using a simple one-page paper form, which again became a shocker to a lot of people. But the funny thing is, I got a lot of questions and a lot of feedback after this, and obviously people were shocked that, oh wow, that's way too easy. Anyone can basically fill out this paper form with the information that is, almost completely publicly available, send it in, and they will have access to your account, and you will not receive information. No notification at all that they have gained access to your account. That's crazy. But nobody asked me, why did you go to the media with this story? I mean, you reported to the bank, they fixed it, or they are fixing it. Why would you break the story like this? Is it just, for the fame? Because you don't, trust me, there's no fortune at the end of this. You don't get rich, you don't get paid anything to do this. And it's an interesting question, and I will explain that, because I did this because we found that DNB is not the only bank in Norway that provides this kind of paper form, but there are, 100, 200 banks in Norway, and I do not have the time or the interest in checking all the banks, because all do it differently. And I didn't want to spend time trying to check every single one. So we told the Financial Super Authority of Norway, we told the bank, we told several other banks and so on that you need to check this before we go public with this story, because when the story goes public, it will get easier to exploit this if this is a solution that you provide, giving power of attorney by paper. And that's the simple explanation of this. Of course, additional takeaways on this, the standard 90 days to fix limitation from Google whenever they find some serious security flaws, and they have also expanded this to 30 additional days before any details are released about a zero-day exploit that they find in any products. It's a growing bug industry of bug bounty programs. I'm gotta say I'm not really a fan of bug bounty programs. I think that it's, to me, it's a little bit questionable whether, are people participating in this to fix problems, or are they participating in this to make money? I'm the kind of guy who prefer to fix problems. And I also talked to the bank, of course, and internally at Vipps as well about ISO 29147, about vulnerability disclosure, and also ISO 3111 about vulnerability handling processes. If you haven't read these, you should. It's interesting read. It's a good thing to try to see if your organization is compliant or should be compliant with these standards, or at least implement programs to work in accordance with these standards for vulnerability disclosure and vulnerability handling internally in your own organization. And in this case, of course, we found these vulnerabilities with DNB, and it took 6 months before they said that, well, we think we got it under control, you can now release the new story. And there's still more work to do on this. But again, 6 months is a lot more than Google would have sort of allowed if this was a 0-day in some online software, as an example. And at VIPS, we also have our own vulnerability disclosure policy available at vips.no/security. It's version 1, and we're also interested, of course, in knowing what you think about this policy. We do not provide any bug bounty program at the moment, but if you should find something of interest with us, please let me know and contact me directly, of course. And maybe I have a cup or t-shirt for you, but that's what we have today. So what's next then? Because we found this, and now, the issue is supposed to be handled, and the problem is not there. Well, DNB is so big of a bank that they have to provide this power of attorney option on paper for people, again, because there are some elderly people, some disabled people, and also a few paranoids that just don't want to do this online. So they want to provide power of attorney access by paper. And one of the things that the bank did was to update the paper form. So now it's 2 pages and they require more documentation. And one of the things that we've done or are working on doing is to use the new version of the paper form to see if we can still gain access even though we're not supposed to. And that's basically it from me about this story for this time. And if there are any questions, I'm open for that now. Thank you. Okay, so good to go. Excellent. So, okay, I'll get back again to decaf here. So my first question to decaf, and this kind of, sorry decaf again, it's kind of weird that I'm asking you questions here, but I'm curious about this because again, for the change notification, if you or a hacker gives, another person access to your account, yes, there will be a notification to the account owner. But how do they do that? Do they do that online? Do they call you? Do they send you a physical letter? Do they send you a text message? And so on, because different notifications can have different security levels, and some of them can be blocked or they won't make it in time and so on. And the second is also of this notarized signature, because again, a notarized signature is, well, I hear you, you need to go to somebody who is allowed to do this stuff, but can they be bribed? Can you fake their seal and their name and signature? Will those signatures and so on ever be checked? Because it's part of a sort of a physical world, and the issues that we found here was part of a physical world using a paper form, while the standard way to do it is to do everything digital using Bank ID, which is identity and authorization. And at least for the background for this talk, we could say that Bank ID is secure. So that's sort of my questions. So decaf, it says, it depends. I got emails, text, and physical letters on changes. Sometimes all of them won't change. Okay, that's interesting. I'm like, I can't totally guarantee, but I can tell you, I swear on my life, I do want to go back to Las Vegas next year to do PasswordsCon together with BSides live in Las Vegas next year. I'll do the password song, I'll do the password dance, I will, do all kinds of crazy stuff to make it happen. And I hope to see lots of you people there. And decaf, I'm gonna buy you a decaf coffee, and I would like to talk more to you. But are there any more questions? Looking here in the channel now, so let's have a look. Sometimes all of them for one change from decaf. Yes, it's probably possible to forge a notary through bribing, but it would be traceable and land them in prison likely. Okay, yep, that sounds good. The concept of notary has, it has at least existed here in Norway as well. If you are a student and you are going to well, a long time ago, when I was no longer a student and I was going to apply for jobs, they would ask for copies of my, certifications and degrees and so on from school and so on. And what I would have to do then, I would have to go to, as an example, a postal office and have somebody there make copies of my original papers, and they would sign them and they would stamp them and say that, yes, we are sort of a notary. It's the official postal mail of Norway certifying that these copies are correct. Now, of course, you could trick with that as well. It wasn't really that hard. It's just paper copies. But today, it's, I don't know of cases more or less where you use this kind of concept anymore. It's digital, except in this particular case where we have witnesses signing off and they are clueless on what they actually sign on to. And very much up to a meet at some point. Very interesting topic. Okay, yeah, thanks, Decaf. Interesting. Okay, is there anything more to say? Not sure, and also time is of course running. We still have, still have 10 to 12 minutes, I think. Are there any cultural factors that make this example unique from Niven? A good question. When I've been doing PasswordsCon, I've done it in Norway and Sweden, I've done it in Germany, I've done it in the UK and done it in the US. I've been doing talks in many other countries as well about passwords and so on. And I've been getting increasingly more interesting in the, should I say, even psychological, but at least social and cultural differences that do exist. Here in Norway, there's sort of a saying, not only in the security community, but the Norwegian population at large, is that we tend to be naive. We trust each other. We trust the Norwegian government. We trust our prime minister. We even trust the tax authorities. The government does our taxes for us, and they tell us whether we have to pay additional taxes or if we get some money back. And almost all Norwegians, they would just receive the result from the government's tax office, and they will just sign off, yep, that's fine. They don't even check the numbers. And if that makes us incredibly naive, you would probably say that, yes, that makes us very naive. But we are, we are a country where we trust each other, and that is a good thing for us. But we are also aware of the fact that they can be abused, which is something that we do see in some cases of cybercrime, as an example. And I do know from other countries where I've been that people, they just looked at me like, you Norwegians, you're freaking crazy. You gotta be kidding me. You trust the tax authorities? And we do. For this case, it's a bit more interesting because I did ask DNB and also other banks about these paper forms, and they said that, well, yeah, thank you for finding this, and it's we still have them because there are some people who needs them. But we haven't really given it a second thought for years and years and years, because it's now close to 20 years since we started using bank ID here in Norway, and it's 10, 15 years ago since pretty much everyone used bank ID. So, still doing stuff by paper form with banks is, you don't do that in everyday life. So it was basically like, oh yeah, oh wow, there's a paper form, and we just completely forgot about that. We haven't updated the technology in like a decade or more. That was sort of the thing in this case. Yeah, Scoops, I can imagine you would love to have the US government do your taxes for you. I can understand. Well, not naive, says Decaf, just not beholden to those who make money off making us all fill out our taxes ourselves in the US. Good point, good point. I have let the government do my taxes for many years, and I do check some of the key numbers. I have, well, the few times I have found a difference, it is so small that it has nearly nothing to say on whether I have to pay additional taxes or I get any money back from the government because I paid too much taxes last year. So it's, I should say they do a very good job on this. And again, because everything is digital in these cases. Neil asks, so this may sound like a silly question, but does Norway still have cash banks? It's not a silly question, and the honest answer is, if you go to a bank in Norway today, they don't accept cash, and they don't have any cash in the bank. And they don't accept you even handing over cash and saying, I want to put this into my bank account. For most banks, you can't do that anymore. And to the extent is like, well, now we have the pandemic, of course, and COVID-19 is still a thing here in Norway as well, but at least to a small extent. But if you go to any store in Norway today and you want to pay by cash, they will give you an eye and like, seriously, are you sure you don't have a card? Okay, well then, but because they are obliged to take it. It's still mandatory to accept cash, but most places they really try to not do it. And banks, they don't have cash, as I said. So this is sometimes a problem in Denmark where it's really difficult to find a physical bank that takes money. Well, it's difficult to find a physical bank office that you're actually allowed to go visit here, because bank offices now are just administration offices. It's not a bank where they handle customers in their office anymore. And that's, that even accelerated even more, of course, with the pandemic. But even before then, going to a bank office, that's like, why would I go to a bank office? I don't, what would possibly be the point of doing that? I don't have to. There's no need. So Decaf, how long has Bank ID been in common use? And how long has Norway been a digital-focused banking system, say 90% for 5 years? Bank ID is, I don't know, close to 15, 16, 17 years old now, maybe? I should know this because I work with Bank ID, but honestly, I don't know the exact date, but it's been around for a long time. And today, you can essentially say that everyone aged 18 and older are using Bank ID, period. I mean, the percentage that's not using Bank ID is very, very small. And not only that, but also one of the things that, and this is not unique to Norway, this is much more common to find in Europe compared to in the US. But in Norway, there's sort of a clearing central between the banks. So transferring money from one account in one bank to another account in another bank in Norway is that easy. And a few years ago, it would be overnight and it would be done electronically in all cases. That's been the thing since the dawn of time, as long as I can remember, because we have this clearing central between the banks. But the company that I work for now, Vipps, we have a payment solution named Vipps, where the money is sent and received instantly within Norway, within anyone using Vipps. And almost all adult Norwegians, again, are using Vipps. So if I want to send money to a friend of mine, I would just use the Vipps app, and 2 seconds later it says ping in my friend's phone, and my friend has the money in his account and can use them 2 seconds later. So that and that is available for everyone. So it's pretty awesome in Norway. Okay, more questions around? I'm watching Decaf's hype now. I'm like seriously waiting, excited. Come on, you can do it. Type. And for those of you who haven't been to PastoralsCon before, Kittens is a thing. And also puppies is a thing. If you go to pastoralscon.org, you can read a little bit more about the use of kittens and puppies. But it's basically symbol you use on your first or second slide of your presentations, where you say that this is the background information that we sort of believe that you already know, and the next slides are going to be like that advanced. So that's why I have Kittens. This talk is basic stuff, really. At least I think so. And we have 3 more minutes of the live Q&A before I need to get off and leave the stage to the next speaker and the next on here on stream 2. Okay, very under pressure on decaf. Totally fine. I understand. Been there, done that. Anyway, thank you once again for all of those asking questions here. I will, of course, stay online longer here in the channel and also the other channels as well. So feel free to reach out on the Ground 1234 channel on Discord. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Twitter as Thorsheim and so on. If you have any questions or comments, or if you'd like to, meet up sometime for a coffee and a talk about anything that has to do with digital authentication or even, paper form authentication, please reach out, and hope to see you in Las Vegas next year. Thank you, cool asset. I love you too, man. Okay, I think that's about it. Nothing more. Okay, Nian is typing. Blushing. Okay, excellent. Thank you all.
Kan jeg hjelpe deg med noe?
Okay, yeah, Siri wants to help me with something. Okay, thank you all again. Enjoy the rest of B-Sides. I'll stick around today and also tomorrow a bit. And again, I really, really hope to see you in Las Vegas next year. Take care, everyone. Have fun, and ta-da.